We are back with the Clear Skies Retirement Podcast with Jay Kirkwood of Secure Financial Management. Jay is a private pilot, so we like to say, let's map out your retirement flight plan. You can start online right now at retire210.com. Jay, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Randy. This is a busy time of the year. Annual reviews, Roth conversions, all sorts of stuff going on.
Right. Yeah. Fourth quarter is a time when there's kind of like a window that closes at the end of the year. I mean, there's another window that closes around tax time, but there are certain things that you probably need to talk about right now when it comes to your retirement planning. And I know that RMDs, the required minimum distributions that people who are in retirement, if they're in their 70s, they have to take. And that's a calculation that you guys make for everybody every year and figure out how that all factors in, isn't it?
Yeah, there's a lot going on. There's tax planning for the end of the year. There's RMDs. There's what's the plan for next year. So I know a lot of people think kind of things start to slow down. Not for us at the end of the year. They kind of ramp up.
All right. Well, we have a list here today. We haven't done a list for a while, so I thought we'd dive into this one because I found this was pretty interesting, and this comes out of Kiplinger. And it is the 5 golden rules of retirement planning. And we can probably spend a lot of time on number 1 here because they have an interesting way of talking about it. It says, figure out your L's. Your L's in retirement are lifetime income, liquid savings, lowering risk, lowering taxes, and legacy. We can probably spend some time there. If you had all your L's put together there, I think that would probably be a pretty good start for your retirement plan, wouldn't it?
That'd be great. That's a lot of work, though. They kind of rolled off your tongue there pretty easily, but that's a lot of work they're talking about there.
It is. But I mean, when you talk about priorities, though, I mean, lifetime income, everybody wants to know what they're going to get paid in retirement. And that's really job number 1 is you figure out, I've done all this. What does it mean in a paycheck, correct?
I mean, what they've done here really is they've broken down the elements that a good financial plan should have. That's really what it is, right? Is that when you're doing your planning, you go through all that. You say, hey, do I have enough assets that are going to provide me for income for the rest of my life? Do I have the savings that I need set aside somewhere for emergencies? We talk about having emergencies funds while you're working, and it should be, as a rule of thumb, it should be 3 to 6 months of living expenses. Retirement's no different, right? You should have an emergency fund during retirement as well. And then, we have a program for our clients, I think I've talked to you about, that we rolled out, probably like 10 years ago. That is not just the retirement planning, the investment management, but also the tax planning element. We group our CPAs into the plan and the estate planning as well, which, you mentioned here as legacy. And I joke with people about it, but, there's a bit of truth in every joke, right? Where I was like, hey, the reason we put this together is, tax planning is an issue, of course. And when you get to retirement, you can't kid yourself that you're still young anymore. You need to do that legacy planning, that estate planning now as well.
Yeah, that is getting all the legal documents in place is a part of the retirement planning process for sure. And it's some things that people kind of forget about because they feel as though they go to their financial advisor for advice on investments. Then they got to go to an attorney for that. Well, yeah, you probably do need an attorney and you need a tax person and you need a financial advisor, but they all need to be working together to get these L's in place. Lifetime income, liquid savings, lowering risk, lowering taxes, and legacy. Now, the next one on the list here of their 5 golden rules of retirement are use all the asset classes. And they say the banks, the market, and the insurance companies. And, when we think about putting money in our 401k, we're using the market, but we're really not using all the aspects of it. Do you have all 3 of those prongs for most of your retirement clients?
Yeah, for most of them we do. And what you're talking about there at a higher level is moving from work life to retirement life. That's what it is. And it's the accumulation phase of your wealth, it's a different process to the distribution phase of your wealth. And I believe, and I think most planners that have been in this industry for a while would believe as well, that there is a lot more danger in the distribution side of that curve than there is in the accumulation. And I think I've mentioned this to you before that I don't know how it happened, but climbing Mount Everest, is now on some people's bucket list. We've got a client that I don't think they're going to be able to do it because of just the shape they're in. But their goal is a Mount Everest summit. Oh, hey man, try it at least. I don't know if it's how realistic it is, but try it. Yeah, it's dangerous, right? I mean, people die doing that trek sometimes. And what's interesting is that more of them die on the way down than on the way up. And I can only assume that it's on the way up. You know there's danger, right? You're aware of it and you're trying to get to the summit and you get there and you're like, oh, great. Like the danger's behind me. I don't have to worry about this anymore. Now it's just getting back down to base camp, and complacency sets in. Lack of identifying the real risks set in. You know, I doubt that it's inherently more dangerous summiting that peak than it is coming down. It's just the attitude changes that the danger's behind me when it's really not. You're only halfway there. And accumulating the wealth, 401ks are great for accumulation. This is my opinion. They're great for accumulation. You're 30, you're 40, even early 50s. Maybe you're not going to retire till you're 62, 65, whatever it might be. Well, you've got time on your side. You should really be focusing about growing your money, get it in the markets, grow it, take advantage of that as much as possible. Now you pivot into retirement life. And do you want some growth? Yeah, I want some growth, but hey, I can't stick my neck out there too far because I need this money now. I need it to last me the rest of my life. So if I had a bit of income there, that would be great. A little bit of more security, some growth potential still. And most 401ks that we review, and when I say most, I'm like 99% plus, they don't have enough options in there to check all those boxes.
Mm-hmm. And it's interesting how you use these things all differently. I mean, during your working years, you use a bank for putting your money. It's just a placeholder. I'm going to save there. I have a savings account. I have a checking account. I use it that way. With the insurance company, I'm using it mostly for protection for my family because I buy a term policy or something like that. With the market, I put money in a 401k and I don't really do much with it. I just hope it grows. But when you get into retirement, all these things are different. When you use an insurance company in retirement, it might be for income, not necessarily for protection. You use the bank maybe for some growth and not just putting money away in savings. It's all very different. And that's why I think it's so important to make that step to use a financial advisor, because this is a whole different world we're living in here. I mean, healthcare used to be through my employer. Now it's going to be through something called Medicare. All these dynamics change in retirement. We got to get some guidance along the way.
Yeah, it's going from that ascending the summit to descending the summit, and the tools you use to achieve both sides of that are very different. You use them in different ways. You're spot on.
You're listening to Clear Skies Retirement with Jay Kirkwood at Secure Financial Management, and we're going through this list here today as we get going about the 5 golden rules of retirement planning. I like the first one. It says, figure out your L's: lifetime income, liquid savings, lower your risk, lower your taxes, and legacy. Use all the asset classes, use the bank, use the insurance companies, use the market. The next one is avoid plans that depend on withdrawals. And I've said this many times in the past. My little, phrase for it is you can't just go into retirement and peel money off your 401k as you need it, because the market could take some away and then now you're double dipping, so to speak. It says your assets should generate income. So there are people that probably believe that diving into your principal is a dirty phrase, but is it in retirement? And should everything kick off income? Tell me how that whole picture works.
Yeah, you need different buckets doing different things, right? So we mentioned before that once you get to retirement, instead of growth, do you want some growth? Yeah, I want some growth, but I can't take too much risk and I need to generate some income and I need some stability here. It's about having different things going on. And one of the issues I think you're getting at there, Randy, is what we call in the investment world, we call it sequence of return risk, right? So the first couple of years that you're into retirement, we've seen it make or break people, depending on kind of what happens in the markets at the time. If you retired in December of 21 and you kept everything the same in that growth portfolio of your 401k that you had or your IRA, and you were peeling money off, you really had a significant hit to your portfolio, because the S&P was down somewhere in the range of 20%, and maybe you were drawing another 4 or 5% of that off to support your income, support your retirement. And so now that $1 million you had is down to 750. And yeah, 23 was a good year. 24 was a good year. Thus far, it's pretty good as well. But that 750 now has got to come up like 30, 40% just to get back to where it was when you started. And guess what? You're still peeling money off it in those up years as well. The sequence of return risk, it's really interesting. You can put two portfolios next to each other and look out over a 10, 15, 20-year period. And it's the same amount of money that you start with. It's actually the same returns, just in a different order. And what you'll find is if you just have bad timing and you weren't set up the right way and you had a couple of back-to-back bad years in the beginning, that money runs out really quick.
It is one thing that we cannot control, what the market is going to do, what the economy is going to do, but we can control how our money is placed, where it is, how much we have in that market, how much we have in the insurance companies, how much we have in the bank and the other places that Jay can show you. Give us a look on our website, which is retire210.com, to sit down and talk to Jay about where your money should be placed, where you feel about the risk of the stock market and how much you want to play in that arena. Retire210.com. Down at the bottom of the page, there's a place for you to put some information in there, and Jay and the team will reach out to you. Or you can just call us at 210-985-6200. 210-985-6200. All right, number 4 on our top 5 golden rules of retirement planning from Kiplinger, it says, avoid plans based on probabilities. You need to know in your account the what-ifs of retirement. These are all the things that pull away at your money. I guess now the conversation is more about market risk and inflation and taxes and all the things that pull on our money, as opposed to us, who is also going to be a big pull on our money.
There's a lot of things that are going to be pulling on it, right? You need to live. The government wants their cut. The market's going to get involved. There's all these different elements pulling on our plan. And this is how we address it. Create a financial plan or a retirement plan that's pretty pessimistic. That's what I think you should do, and that's what we do for clients, right? Hey, most of us have got bad news, right? We're not going to live to 95. We're just not. A small number of the population will. We plan out to age 95. Is it, could we plan to 87 or 90 and probably still be okay? Probably. Let's go to 95 and see if it still works. Let's use far below average market returns. Let's assume inflation is a constant problem during our retirement. If we put a plan together that I would sum that up as pessimistic, right? It sounds funny to say living a long life is pessimistic, but for your finances it is, right? Because we've got to finance it now for a while. So we've got longevity, prices keep increasing, the market just stinks. Are we still going to be okay? That's how these plans should be done. Often when people are planning for themselves, I've shared this with you before, they paint a very rosy picture of what the environment is going to be like when they retire. I've told you this before, and some of our listeners may or may not have heard it. I'll repeat it. We had a gentleman come to see us years ago, 8-10 years ago, and he was pretty young. He was 53 or 54. Wanted to retire early, like late 50s. And he had done everything himself. And I asked him straight up, I was like, hey, what are you here for? Are you looking to work with somebody? Are you a do-it-yourselfer? And he's like, well, yeah, I do this myself. I'll probably keep doing it. I was like, well, look, there's not much I can help you with if you're just going to do it yourself. But you're already here in the office. I'll give you 15 minutes. Let's talk through this. If you got some questions, I'll answer it for you. He said, well, I've got this financial plan. I'm just, I don't know if I'm doing it right, which that should be your first red flag, right? If you're talking about your retirement, you're doing your own planning, and you're like, I don't really know if I'm doing it right. That should give you some pause anyway. And so for doing thousands of plans over decades, you get a bit of a feel for somebody once you know their age, how much income they need in retirement, what are the assets we have to work with, 401ks, pensions, Social Security, whatever it might be. You get a bit of an idea right away. Hey, are we in the ballpark here? Like, is this realistic what they're trying to do? Or is it, there's just no way this can work? And when this guy showed me everything he was working with, the assets that he has, what he's contributing to his 401k, Social Security, when he wants to retire, how much income he wants, I was looking at it and, he's got this fantastic result there that works really well. And for a while, I couldn't figure it out. And I said to him, without doing the formal planning for you, I don't know what the problem is here, but something doesn't look right. And then finally I asked him, I said, hey, what assumed rate of return do you have built in to this plan that you have? And it was 16%. 16% every year for the rest of his retirement with no down years. All right.
Very optimistic.
Yeah, a lot of people can retire if you're going to get 16% annually forever. So I said, yeah, you probably want to have a second look at that, right? And then I said to him, as we kind of uncovered this, I said, well, what are you building in for inflation increases? Now, keep in mind, right? So this was 2016, 17, 18, something like that, like 8, 9, 10 years ago, something like that. So what was happening back then? We hadn't had an inflationary environment for some time. Inflation was basically nothing back then. 2022 had not happened. We didn't have the COVID, all the price increases from them. But a stable plan should have been planning for it back then anyway. Mm-hmm. And I said, well, what are you using for your inflation increase? Oh, well, I'm just nothing, zero. Like, we haven't had inflation for a while. And it's like, hey, look, I'm not doing the planning for you. You're your own advisor. You might want to think about changing that as well, right? Mm-hmm. I don't know what happened with the guy. I don't know if he ever listened to it and kind of went and redid it. But that was it's hard to be emphatic enough on this. That is quite an optimistic plan. That inflation is zero for the entirety of your retirement. You're going to get 16% return on your money. If I can figure out how to do that, I think I might retire too right now.
You're listening to Clear Skies Retirement with Jay Kirkwood at Secure Financial Management. There are a lot of things that are pulling at your money, including you in retirement, but it's going to be markets, it's going to be taxes, it's going to be inflation. Long-term care is another thing that can pull at your money later in life. And then there's all the things that happen along the way, which brings us to number 5 on our list here is your plan should be adjustable to meet the changing needs that you're going to have in retirement. You are not going to be the same person between 65 and 70 as you are between 75 and 85. You're not going to be that same person because you're probably going to be traveling very early. And then later in life, the things that you're going to be spending money on might be healthcare. You slow down a little bit. But this is something that you talk about all the time is that ongoing support this is not a thing where somebody comes in, meets with you, puts a plan together, you shake hands, they're out the door and they're on their way. This is a yearly meeting. It's meetings when things change in your retirement so that you can keep up financially with the changes in your life.
At the end of what we call a plan presentation, right? Like, hey, we've got this plan together. This is what it looks like. It works. It doesn't. What are the elements of it? What I focus on, and again, I'm not a pessimistic person in general, but we're talking about people's retirements and we shouldn't be assuming everything's going to be rosy forever. What I do is I go over at the end and I say, hey, there are a couple different things, 3 big things that could undo this plan, that could make it not work. So fortunately, most of the time people meet with us, we're able to deliver good news, right? Hey, if you want to retire at 60, you want to retire at 57, whatever it is, with the assets that you have and what income you need to live on to live your retirement, we're good to go. 8 or 9 times out of 10, we're able to give that news, which is fortunate. But I wrap it up by saying there are 3 big things that could undo this whole thing. And let's talk about what they are, right? The biggest one by far is, have we got the right retirement income that you need here? And I go over and over it, and I think people get sick of it by the end of hearing me talk about it. But I say, if there is something that is going to undo this plan, it's the most obvious thing. It's that you've given us the wrong amount of retirement income that you need. If we've got a plan that whatever it is, $7,000 a month is what I need for my retirement income to live the retirement that I want, and this plan works at that, if that's wrong and you get into retirement and you come back and you say, hey guys, yeah, I was way off on that. I need 9 or 10,000. Well, the plan's probably blowing up, right? Mm-hmm. Probably that is not going to work. The second thing is, how are we going to invest? It is common that people get to retirement and now they say, well, they're kind of like feeling, well, this is kind of the general advice that I read online and everything is, I need to be much more conservative now. And Now I'm in bond funds and I'm in money markets and I'm in CDs. And for some of the money, that might be right. But likely we've got multiple decades of retirement and we need to allocate something to growth. If you're going to retire and stick this all in CDs and money markets, this plan is not going to work. We've got to have some sort of growth that we're going to live on. We're going to kind of grow these assets over the next 20, 30 years so we can make this retirement work. And the final one, it's what you mentioned, is this is a picture in time, right? We've made some assumptions here. We've had to. Yes, they're very moderate assumptions, assuming low growth and inflation and stuff like that. Yes, they are moderate, but it's not going to unfold over the next 25 years exactly like we've shown here. We need to be able to monitor this and pivot when things happen. When we did our planning for people in 2017 and 2018 and 2019, we did not have that in 2020, there was going to be a worldwide pandemic, right? Like nobody had that in their plans. But if you were on top of everything and you were meeting and you had flexibility, all the things we've discussed, right? You had flexibility, you were keeping up with this plan, you were able to get through it.
You're listening to Clear Skies Retirement with Jay Kirkwood at Secure Financial Management. We've spent this half hour here talking about this list from Kiplinger, the 5 golden rules of retirement planning. I'll whip through them real quickly here. Number 1 has a lot to it. It says figure out your L's. Lifetime income, just what Jay was just talking about. Liquid savings, your emergency fund. Lowering risk, lowering taxes, and legacy planning. Use all the asset classes, the market, the banks, the insurance companies. We could probably throw in there real estate as well, which is another place that people invest. Avoid plans that are dependent on withdrawals. Your assets should generate income. It's, you had a job that generated income. Now your assets need to generate income. Avoid plans that are based on probabilities. All the what ifs, the taxes, the markets, the inflation, all the things that take away at your money, you have to account for those, and your plan should be adjustable along the way. So as I look at that list, it really does go along with your Get Me to Retirement 5-step process. I mean, the introductory meeting, just kind of figuring out where you are right now, then reviewing, what you got, and then how are you doing? And figuring out what's working and what's not working. This really does kind of mirror what you do, doesn't it, Jay?
Yeah, it does. And any good plan is people are kind of surprised sometimes when they come in for that first meeting and they think we're going to kind of start unveiling recommendations and stuff. And I was like, hey, we're not doing any of that right now. We're just talking. We're just figuring out who are you? What are you trying to achieve? What do you got to work with? Where are you trying to get to? Then let us put a plan together. Let's implement it. Let's monitor it. And let's just make sure that this is not a one-time thing. Your retirement's not going to be a one-time thing. It's going to be an ongoing thing, a yearly thing, a thing that's going to last decades, really. And it's quite a process.
And we would love to have the opportunity to talk to you about that process. This is a no-cost, no-obligation meeting. Set it up with Jay and the team at Secure Financial Management. Retire210.com is the website. Very simple. Retire210.com. Spell that right out there. And you'll see down at the bottom of the page, you'll see Jay's book down there. And you'll also have the opportunity to put in a little note in there that says, hey, heard the show, Jay. I'm really interested in a meeting, or the headlines really concern me. I don't know where this country is going. I'm really scared about that. There's all sorts of things that people are concerned about. Let's get it all out on the table and find out how we put the money with the plan, the things that you want to do in retirement. Retire210.com is where you can start. We encourage you to do that, or just give us a call, bypass all that. 210-985-6200. 210-985-6200. Thanks again for listening to Clear Skies Retirement. If you've enjoyed this podcast and you want to hear more, remember to hit the like, follow, or subscribe button on your favorite podcast platform. We'll see you next week here on Clear Skies Retirement with Jay Kirkwood.
Investment advisory services offered through investment advisory representatives at Secure Financial Management, a registered investment advisor. Exposure to ideas and financial vehicles discussed are not designed nor intended to be applicable to any person's individual circumstances. It should not be considered as investment advice, nor does it constitute a recommendation that anyone engage in or refrain from a particular course of action. Past performance is not a guarantee of future results. Investments can fluctuate, and when redeemed may be worth more or less than when originally invested. Financial professionals are not licensed in all 50 states. To find out if Secure Financial Management is licensed in your state, please contact their office. Secure Financial Management is not affiliated with nor endorsed by the Social Security Administration or any other government agency. Annuity guarantees rely solely on the financial strength and claims-paying ability of the issuing insurance company. By contacting us, you may be provided with information about insurance and annuity products offered through Wholesalers Insurance. Jamin J. Kirkwood, Texas Insurance License number 1421850.